Hello and welcome to Angry Andy Reviews, and today, thanks in part to my good friend and frequent collaborator Mr. Spider-Dan of Spider-Dan and the Secret Boars podcast, I will be looking at two forgotten Star Wars films, Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor. How exciting!
Angry Andy.
Angry Andy Reviews.
Angry Andy. Angry Andy.
Angry Andy Reviews.
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 Don't make me destroy you.
Buried and long forgotten are the Ewok films released in 1984 and 1985. What? I hear you speak? Ewok films? Nah, you're a lying crow. Well, I wish I really was. And thanks to my good friend, as I said before, and frequent collaborator Mr. Spider-Dan of Spider-Dan and the Secret Boars podcast, I was subjected to these films once again, after I had long since purging my mind of their mundane being. His podcast, which you can find via the link below, features a full discussion on these films, but here, well, brace yourselves.
Orbiting the forest moon of Endor.
Following the dire release and reception of the ill-fated Star Wars Holiday Special, George Lucas himself instigated tighter control on TV-related content going forward, which was initialised by a planned half-hour Ewok project. After the network ABC showed interest in a full-scale, made-for-TV movie, all focus was spearheaded into what eventually became both Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor. The plot is quite simple. Aggressively and potentially condescendingly simple, but on the forest moon of Endor,
Orbiting the forest moon of Endor.
the Tawani family star cruiser has crashed and they are left stranded. After the parents are kidnapped, the two young children, Mace and Sindel, no, not Sindel from Mortal Kombat sadly,
Too bad you will die.
are found by the Ewok Wicket, played once again by the young Warwick Davis and his clan, who soon after agree to form a caravan of travellers to help find the lost parents. Battle for Endor, a direct sequel, deals with a group of marauders and an evil witch who attack the Ewok village in search of a power source which the Tawani family has on their star cruiser for no reason. The Tawani family, except for Sindel, is killed. Yes, that's right. They spent an entire film rescuing the parents and they are killed off along with Mace inside the first 5 minutes of this sequel. And so begins a trudge to recover this power source alongside Noah, a grumpy old man who himself has been stranded on Endor for years. This film is dark, brooding, and a total departure from its predecessor. It features more action, sure, more forward motion, and in general seems better in structure.
Forest moon of Endor.
Now considered outside of major timeline canon and referred to as legends, what little charms these films have in terms of legacy, such as being one of the last major users of stop motion filming techniques, the musical score, which is great, the wonderful matte painting backdrops in many of the scenes, characters and ideas that have been uplifted into major Disney canon, such as the Night Sisters of Dathomir, which could be attributed to Sharel, the evil witch in Battle for Endor, are all undone or forgotten due to the sheer fact that these films are absolutely garbage. Tonally, they are all over the place. The scripts are dire and tired, resembling a poor man's attempt to fashion together something more akin to Lord of the Rings or Dungeons and Dragons, with Caravan of Courage essentially a knockoff of Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, even the titles sound the same. The badly written dialogue exposes the actors completely, placing exposition-heavy elements squarely upon the shoulders of the great Wilfred Brimley, whilst leaving the child actors to appear utterly annoying and whiny, with Mace appearing petulant and overtly aggressive without any further dissection made into his character to add point or reason. I genuinely felt sorry for Wilfred Brimley in this film. He was a different class to anything else in this film.
Forest Moon of Endor.
There is also very little in the way of actual Star Wars on display in either of these films beyond the John Williams-esque scoring, some reused TIE Fighter blaster sound effects, and the Ewoks themselves. Yet they barely resemble or behave in the same fashion that we had seen of them in Return of the Jedi. They appear paper thin in reasoning to be associated with the film. Quite simply, you could have had any other set of creatures take the lead and have noticed no real difference at all in the final product. But, alas, I guess a selling point was needed. In fact, these are somewhat less of a pair of sci-fi features and more like a medieval fantasy adventure with weird narration akin to that of a David Attenborough documentary. But they lack the grace, ingenuity and execution of both of those genres. Narration, which is used in Caravan to explain the Ewoks' motivations and cover their lack of language, is eradicated completely in Battle for Endor because they fabulously learn English. When are these films set? Well, supposedly before Return of the Jedi. If so, why do they not understand Leia at all? Because they, according to fan theories, learnt a completely different dialect of English from Sindel Tawani. Good. Nothing better than fan theories and fan fiction to fill in the cracks in your narrative and character motivations. Isn't that right? Sequel trilogy.
Forest Moon of Endor.
Continuity errors and anachronisms are in vast abundance here, as are misplaced and oddly weird uses of Earth creatures such as horses and ferrets alongside actual alien-looking creatures, which has the odd and unfortunate ability to completely withdraw you from any semblance of investment that you might have somehow developed in this as a sci-fi feature.
Forest Moon of Endor.
The biggest sin that it harbours herein, and what completely evaporates any notion of believability or investment for me, relates in some way to established lore. In the past, we have clearly seen descriptive worlds, Mustafar, Tatooine, Hoth, all set in style and planetary features, be they desert, ice or lava worlds, and Endor is no different. It is clearly described by Admiral Akbar,
Forest Moon of Endor.
showcased as a forest moon, and rightly so. It sets a perfectly level tone for a mysteriously beautiful and potentially dangerous world, a world that the Empire underestimates to their downfall, or so you would believe. Why then, in these films, does a big fuck-off desert suddenly appear?
Forest Moon of Endor.
Let's not forget that Lucas himself personally handled these films. One could argue that this is clear evidence of him jumping the shark long before the prequels came to fruition.
I don't like sand.
Forest Moon of Endor.
I get it. Worlds can have varying ecosystems, just look at our own world. But if you've established something in lore as being a fact, you cannot add something for convenience just to make the story work or make it seem more interesting. What of the mountainous castles that reside in these deserts? Mountain ranges, yeah, sure, are expected on any world, and forests can and do grow in mountainous areas. But with the castles, if these films are set before Return of the Jedi, how were the Empire not aware of such castles? And if they were, what level of hubris did they harbour to avoid them, or indeed not factor them in their efforts to establish a base? If these films are set after, then how old are these castles? In fact, how old is Chuffing Wicket? Just what the hell is going on? Ignorance of established source material from their own creators is as damaging and laughable to the point of tearing down what little quality actually remains, and there is so little quality on display here across the board that they are completely unviewable to all but the most forgiving of Star Wars fans. And if you do enjoy these films, then please enjoy them as much as you can, but honestly, I don't understand how you could. It is also of little surprise to know that apart from a few DVDs and VHS tapes out there, they are completely absent from any form of streaming service. Even Disney Plus, which owns all the rights to all Star Wars material. What does that tell you? For my money, that should remain so. Worthy of a watch to see how far Star Wars has fallen in such a short space of time back then after Return of the Jedi? Sure. Worthy of a watch for any other reason beyond morbid curiosity? Absolutely not. I honestly cannot recommend a viewing of these films at all, nor can I place a score on top of them. I simply can't. And it's going to take me another 10 years to purge all of this from my mind. Thank you once again to Spider Dan and the Secret Boars podcast. Check out his material down below for the podcast, of which me and him discuss these films further if you would like more entertainment. But for the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Orbiting the forest moon of Endor.